Welcome back to Quiet Money, where we uncover how America's wealthiest families build, protect, and pass on dynasties in near silence. Today, we turn our attention to a family that rarely makes headlines, yet sits atop a $40 billion fortune, a name you know from hotel lobbies, architecture awards, and the governorship of Illinois. The Pritzkers didn't just build wealth, they engineered one of the most complex modern dynastic systems in American history. Offshore trusts, venture firms, quiet exits, public power, philanthropic prestige. So, how did an immigrant law firm evolve into a global empire spanning hospitality, manufacturing, and politics? Let's explore how the Pritzkers built a modern American financial dynasty, and what makes them the most quietly influential billionaires you've probably never studied. The Pritzker story begins in 1881, when Nicholas Pritzker fled pogroms in Ukraine and settled in Chicago. With little more than grit, he taught himself English reading newspapers and opened a modest law firm, Pritzker & Pritzker. That firm would become the launch pad for one of the most influential family empires in U.S. history. Nicholas's son, A.N. Pritzker, wasn't just a lawyer, he was an opportunist. During the Great Depression, while others ran for cover, A.N. dove into distressed Chicago real estate, quietly buying up assets at fire sale prices. But the real breakthrough came in 1957. Jay and Donald Pritzker bought a modest motel near LAX, the Hyatt House, for $2.2 million. That single deal became Hyatt Hotels, and Jay's vision transformed the way America traveled. Luxury, accessibility, brand scale. Jay made business travel sleek and aspirational. Hyatt wasn't just a hotel chain, it was a modern hospitality revolution. But they didn't stop there. The Pritzkers diversified fast, acquiring the Marmon Group, a sprawling industrial conglomerate with over 100 companies. Their model? Find troubled businesses, fix them quietly, and hold them patiently. In 2007, Warren Buffett bought 60% of Marmon for $4.5 billion. That deal didn't just cash them out, it validated the entire Pritzker approach. Patient capital, low visibility, and high control. Other holdings followed: TransUnion, Braniff Airlines, McCall's Magazine, even Royal Caribbean, and more recently, a flurry of venture, private equity, and direct investments through vehicles like Pritzker Private Capital and 53 Stations. If J. Pritzker redefined how wealth is built, A.N. Pritzker quietly redefined how it's preserved. In 1935, A.N. created offshore trusts in the Bahamas, decades before they became common in elite estate planning. These weren't loopholes. They were blueprints. How does a man die with a personal estate worth $25,000 while controlling a $2.3 billion empire? Simple. Everything was already in trust. Over time, the Pritzkers built a network of over 2,500 trusts. Some supported charity, others owned operating companies. All worked to move assets out of taxable estates, while keeping practical control in the family. That's the perfect separation. Legal title with independent trustees, real influence still flowing through bloodlines. Fast forward to today, and that architecture has evolved. At the heart of the machine sits the Pritzker Organization, a family office managing $30 billion in equity value. But this isn't your typical private equity shop. TPO doesn't buy to flip, it buys to build. And it uses permanent family capital to do it. That long horizon, it means no fund cycles, no outside pressure, just disciplined compounding. Beyond TPO, there's 53 Stations, a next-gen venture firm backed by Jason Pritzker, and Pritzker Private Capital, a hybrid model combining family money with outside partners in club deals. Each vehicle has its own mandate, its own operators, its own corner of the empire. Together, they form a decentralized, agile, and resilient wealth structure. But underneath it all, the same quiet principle remains: control what matters, shield what's vulnerable, and compound what lasts. If estate planning is the architecture of wealth preservation, tax strategy is the plumbing, hidden but essential. And the Pritzkers, they built a fortress beneath the surface. When J. Pritzker died in 1999, his $15 billion empire was sliced into 11 nearly equal pieces, each worth around $1.4 billion. Not by accident, by design. The Pritzkers pioneered pre-death fragmentation, carving assets into trusts, LLCs, and family entities years before estate tax ever entered the room. The result? Assets passed with minimal tax exposure and maximum control. They also leaned into jurisdictional arbitrage, planting trusts offshore, exploiting variations in tax regimes, and engineering governance to separate beneficial interest from legal liability. Some called it aggressive, others called it genius. The IRS mostly called it frustrating. But this wasn't just about shielding money. How do you keep a billion-dollar family from tearing itself apart? Through planned succession, governance, role delineation, and, crucially, controlled transparency. The family learned from its bruises. The Superior Bank collapse, the public lawsuit between Matthew and Liesl Pritzker. So they adapted. Today, family branches operate with autonomy, but within a coordinated framework. Assets are aligned, incentives are clear, and conflict is managed before it spills. The Pritzkers didn't just minimize taxes, they minimized risk, legal, reputational, and interpersonal. And that may be their greatest inheritance strategy of all. Behind every enduring dynasty is a structure, not just of wealth, but of decision-making. For the Pritzkers, governance became the scaffolding that held the empire together. It wasn't always this way. In the early days, decisions were informal, centralized around a few family titans. But as the branches multiplied, so did the need for structure. Enter the Pritzker Organization, a professionally managed family office overseeing billions in equity value. Tom Pritzker, son of Jay, has quietly led it for over 3 decades, shaping the family's long-term investment strategy with discipline and patience. Board roles are carefully distributed. Some family members, like Anthony Pritzker, lead operating companies or philanthropic initiatives. Others step back, participating through advisory committees or foundation boards. This isn't Thanksgiving dinner with a PowerPoint, it's institutional governance. With independent board members, investment committees, formal performance reviews, and yes, succession planning. They've also embraced governance education. Younger family members aren't just handed capital, they're trained. Jason Pritzker's venture firm, 53 Stations, reflects this ethos. Next-gen leadership grounded in family values but aimed at the future. And when cracks formed, like the infamous $1 billion legal battle between Liesl and Matthew Pritzker and their relatives, the family didn't just write a check, they rewrote their governance framework. Today's structure reflects a hard-earned truth. Wealth alone doesn't bind a family, but shared rules, mutual accountability, and clear roles, that's the glue of dynastic success. With great wealth comes great visibility. The Pritzkers have long understood that how you give is just as important as how you earn. So what does Pritzker-style philanthropy look like? Think scale, strategy, and storytelling. The Pritzker Foundation, established in 1944, is one of several vehicles. But it's the Pritzker Foundation, led by J.B. and M.K. Pritzker, that's made headlines. From a $10 million Chicago Prize for community development to large-scale early childhood education initiatives. Then there's Anthony and Jean Pritzker, whose $20 million gift to UCLA advanced environmental research, sustainability, and foster youth programs. Their giving isn't scattered, it's focused, layered, and designed to outlive them. But perhaps the crown jewel of the Pritzker legacy isn't in a hospital wing or a research grant, it's the Pritzker Architecture Prize. Founded by J. Pritzker in 1979, this award is often called the Nobel of Architecture. It confers global prestige, a $100,000 prize, and an enduring link between the Pritzker name and architectural excellence. While other dynasties may cloak their giving in anonymity, the Pritzkers use it as a narrative tool, a way to shape how history remembers them, not just as builders of wealth, but as architects of impact. From Hyatt Hotels to venture capital, from offshore trusts to architectural prizes, the Pritzkers didn't just play the game, they rewrote the rule book. What sets them apart? It's not just the billions, it's the infrastructure, the deliberate blend of permanence and flexibility. And maybe it's their comfort in staying just out of reach. They've taught us that dynastic wealth isn't about hoarding, it's about engineering. Governance, succession, structure, reputation, all tuned like a machine designed to outlive its makers. The Pritzkers didn't inherit a blueprint, they built one. And if the goal is to preserve wealth, power, and purpose across generations, you could do worse than study their design.